The story begins in a small, forgotten village, where time seems to have stopped. After years of silence, the village is once again struck by the dreaded spirit of the Munjya, a mysterious entity from the local folklore that preys on anyone who dares enter the forbidden woods after dark. According to legend, the Munjya is a restless spirit, forever wandering, seeking revenge for a tragic betrayal long ago. A group of city friends decides to visit the village for a weekend getaway, unaware of the old stories that the locals fearfully whisper. They dismiss the warnings, convinced that it's just superstition. As night falls, they begin exploring the outskirts of the forest, their curiosity leading them deeper into the shadowed wilderness. Strange things begin happening, the sound of footsteps behind them that disappear when they turn around, sudden cold chills despite the warm summer air, and eerie whispers calling out the names from the darkness. The further they venture, the more they feel something watching them, something they can't see but is always there, lurking. Suddenly, one of the friends goes missing. Panic sets in as they search frantically, but the deeper they go into the woods, the more they are drawn into a terrifying web of shadows and whispers. They soon realize they are not alone. The Munjya has awoken from its long slumber, and it is hungry for souls. As the spirit grows stronger, the friends encounter old villagers who reveal the true horror of the Munjya's curse. The spirit feeds on fear and guilt, using the victim's darkest secrets against them. The more they run, the more they are trapped in an endless loop of nightmares, unable to escape the terrifying grip of the Munjya. Will they uncover the secret to breaking the curse, or will they, too, become lost in the haunted woods forever, victims of the Munjya's vengeance? Descent into darkness. The friends, now trapped in the haunted woods, start experiencing terrifying hallucinations. They see shadows moving in the corners of their eyes, hear disembodied voices calling them deeper into the forest, and feel the ground shifting beneath them as though something is lurking below. One of them, filled with dread, confesses to a dark secret from their past. As soon as the confession is made, the Munjya's presence intensifies. The Munjya is feeding off their fear and guilt, becoming stronger with each revelation. It whispers the names in the wind, twists the surroundings into impossible shapes, and manipulates their minds into reliving their worst nightmares. Desperation takes hold as the group's bond begins to unravel, each person turning on the others in a frantic attempt to survive. One night, they find a decrepit cabin in the woods, covered in ancient symbols. Inside, they discover a dusty journal written by a villager who encountered the Munjya decades ago. The journal speaks of a ritual to trap the spirit, involving an offering to the Munjya, but the price is unimaginable. As the pages unfold, the horrifying truth becomes clear: one of them must willingly sacrifice themselves to save the others. Haunted by the Munjya's relentless attacks, the friends face a moral dilemma. The Munjya's haunting presence grows more violent, attacking them physically and psychologically, tearing at their minds with illusions of safety, only to twist them into more terrifying scenes. Time is running out. As they prepare for the final showdown, they must decide who among them will make the ultimate sacrifice to appease the Munjya's hunger. But even as they prepare for the ritual, doubts linger: is the ritual real, or is it just another cruel trick played by the Munjya? The episode ends on a cliffhanger, with the ritual beginning but interrupted by a terrifying scream echoing through the night, leaving viewers on edge, questioning who will survive. The final bargain: the ritual is in motion. The group, now down to just a few, is surrounded by a thick, supernatural fog that seems to pulse with the presence of the Munjya. As they chant the ancient words from the journal, the air crackles with energy, and the ground trembles beneath them. But something is wrong. The Munjya is not backing down. It is growing more furious, its whispers turning into shrieks that tear through the night air. Suddenly, the leader of the group falters, their voice breaking in fear. The Munjya seizes this moment of weakness. The eerie glow in the trees intensifies, and from the darkness, ghostly hands stretch out, grasping at the survivors, pulling them toward the shadows. The Munjya is no longer playing tricks, it is preparing to claim its victims. One of the survivors, now driven to madness, starts screaming that the ritual was a trap, that there is no escape from the Munjya. In a fit of panic, they try to flee into the woods, only to be swallowed by the darkness, their screams echoing for a moment before fading into silence. Desperation sets in as the others realize that their time is running out. They must complete the ritual, but at what cost? The journal spoke of a sacrifice, but what if the sacrifice is not just one life? What if the Munjya demands more, perhaps all of their souls? As the Munjya closes in, the ground beneath them begins to crack open, revealing a fiery chasm, a portal to another realm. The survivors are faced with a choice: make the ultimate sacrifice or be dragged into the depths of the unknown. In a moment of clarity, one of the friends steps forward, offering themselves to the Munjya. As they approach the chasm, the Munjya's whispers soften, as though acknowledging the sacrifice. But just as they are about to jump, a blinding light erupts from the chasm, and everything goes silent. The episode ends with the remaining survivors standing at the edge of the chasm, staring into the darkness. The Munjya is gone, but the cost of their survival is etched into their haunted faces. The portal closes, but the question remains: is the Munjya truly gone, or is it simply waiting for its next victim? The abyss of shadows the night in the cursed village is darker than any they've ever experienced. The air is thick with a sense of dread as the friends, now scattered and paranoid, struggle to regroup. The Munjya has grown stronger with each passing moment, feeding on their fear and driving them deeper into insanity. Its presence is no longer just a whisper in the trees, it is everywhere. They discover ancient markings etched into the trees and stones around them, warnings left by past victims. The symbols seem to pulse with a life of their own, glowing faintly in the dark, twisting their minds and drawing them further into the labyrinth of terror. The forest begins to shift. No longer a natural place, it bends and warps around them, creating an endless maze. The trees stretch into grotesque shapes, their branches resembling skeletal hands reaching for the sky. The ground beneath them feels alive, writhing with unseen forces, as if something monstrous is lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to break through. One by one, the friends start seeing visions, not of the Munjya itself, but of their worst nightmares. These aren't just hallucinations, they're vivid, agonizing realities that blur the line between the living world and the realm of the dead. Time begins to distort. What feels like minutes turns into hours, and the deeper they go, the more they realize that this forest is no ordinary place. It is a gateway to something much darker, a realm where the laws of reality are meaningless, and the Munjya is the gatekeeper. In the midst of their terror, one of the friends finds a hidden underground chamber, an ancient burial site long forgotten by the world. The walls are covered in decayed bones, relics of those who tried to fight the Munjya centuries ago. In the center of the room lies an old, blood-stained altar with symbols carved deep into the stone, marking the place of ritual sacrifice. The Munjya reveals itself not as a single entity, but as a collective of souls, each twisted into a demonic form by the horrors they've endured. Its voice is no longer a whisper, but a chorus of screams, each one more blood-curdling than the last. The chamber begins to close in on them, the walls dripping with black, tar-like blood. The Munjya forces them to relive their most painful memories, using the guilt and fear as weapons against them. The floor cracks open, revealing a pit of shadows from which clawed hands emerge, trying to drag them into the abyss. With no escape and their sanity unraveling, they must perform a desperate ritual to seal the Munjya forever. But the ritual demands a sacrifice far more sinister than they imagined. Not just one life, but a piece of the very soul. The episode ends with them surrounded, the Munjya's forms closing in, the distorted faces illuminated by the glow of the altar. The camera lingers on the flickering candles, and in the last moment, everything is swallowed by the pitch-black darkness, leaving only the echoes of the terrified screams. The Soul Reaper, the group, exhausted and on the brink of madness, realizes that the Munjya isn't just a spirit, it's a soul collector, feeding on despair, fear, and the deepest secrets hidden within their hearts. It's no longer content with haunting them from the shadows. Now, it's actively hunting them, drawing closer with each moment. The village itself begins to change, warping into a twisted reflection of their worst nightmares. Houses that once stood as mere ruins now pulse with dark energy, their windows glowing with an eerie, sickly green light. As they venture deeper, they notice the streets are lined with ghostly figures, their hollow eyes tracking their every move. These aren't just apparitions, they're the trapped souls of those who came before, doomed to relive the deaths in an eternal loop. In a terrifying moment, one of the friends is pulled into an abandoned well by unseen forces. His screams echo as the others scramble to pull him out, but it's too late. He disappears into the depths, and the well seals itself, as though it had never existed. The group is left in stunned silence, realizing that the Munjya is toying with them, breaking them apart piece by piece. The Munjya's power is at its peak. The air around them grows colder, and strange symbols begin to appear on their skin, burned into their flesh as marks of ownership. These marks pulse with dark energy, each one representing a part of their soul that the Munjya has claimed. The more marks they get, the closer they are to becoming part of the Munjya's collection. As night falls, they seek shelter in an old, decrepit church on the outskirts of the village. Inside, the walls are covered in cryptic drawings of the Munjya, its many forms, its victims, and the rituals once used to keep it at bay, but the church is far from safe. They soon realize it's a trap, designed by the Munjya itself. The stained glass windows begin to bleed, and the church's bell tolls with an unnatural, deafening sound that rattles their very bones. Suddenly, the church's floor collapses, sending them plummeting into a hidden crypt beneath the earth. Here, they find an ancient coffin chained shut with heavy iron locks. The coffin begins to shake violently, as though something inside is desperate to escape. The journal they found earlier mentioned this crypt. It's said to be the final resting place of the first victim of the Munjya, the one who summoned it centuries ago through a forbidden ritual. Realizing that they may have stumbled upon the key to ending the curse, they must decide: do they release the soul trapped within, hoping it will help them, or leave it sealed, fearing it might unleash a new horror upon the world? The tension builds as the Munjya appears, fully formed in front of them. It is no longer just a shadow, it is a monstrous, shifting mass of darkness and tortured faces, each one a soul it has devoured. Its many voices speak in unison, offering them a twisted deal: if one of them willingly gives their life, the others may leave. But there's a catch: the chosen one must offer themselves without resistance, fully accepting their fate. As the Munjya's shadow looms over them, the walls of the crypt start to close in, and the darkness becomes suffocating. The episode ends with the group surrounded. The Munjya inches away from claiming its next victim, leaving the viewers with a terrifying sense of doom. Into the abyss, the group, now trapped deep within the ancient crypt, begins to realize the full extent of the Munjya's power. The crypt itself pulses with dark energy, and every corner is filled with whispers from the spirits of those who had been taken by the Munjya. The walls seem to move with the rhythm of their fear, distorting their sense of time and reality. The once solid ground beneath them feels unstable, as if it's sinking into something far more sinister, a pit of despair from which there is no escape. Suddenly, the ceiling starts to drip a thick, black substance, burning their skin on contact. The shadows around them twist and turn, becoming clawed hands that reach out, grasping at their clothes and pulling them toward the coffin in the center of the crypt. The closer they get, the more unbearable the cold becomes, freezing them to the bone. Desperation sets in as the Munjya's voice, now amplified by the darkness, begins to speak directly to them. It doesn't use words anymore, but their worst fears, memories they had buried long ago, resurface, tormenting them with guilt and regret. Each of them begins to experience hallucinations of their past, twisted into grotesque and horrifying visions. The coffin bursts open, but instead of a body, an unnatural void lies within, an entrance to a deeper realm of darkness. It's the heart of the Munjya's domain, a place where time and space are meaningless, and the laws of life and death no longer apply. One by one, they are pulled into this abyssal rift, each one falling deeper into their own personal nightmare. As they descend, the Munjya's presence becomes omnipresent, feeding on their terror. In this twisted dimension, they are separated and forced to face the deepest fears alone. The Munjya appears as manifestations of the guilt, whether it's a loved one they failed to save, a mistake they made that ruined lives, or a dark secret they've kept buried. These apparitions are not just visions, they can hurt them, mentally and physically, feeding the Munjya's growing power. The walls around them begin to bleed, and the floor shifts like liquid, forcing them to move deeper into the darkness. The only way out, they realize, is to confront their fear head-on, but doing so comes with a price. One of them must willingly offer their soul to the Munjya to save the others, becoming part of the ancient curse that has plagued the village for centuries. The episode reaches its terrifying climax when they discover that the only way to seal the Munjya is to sacrifice themselves. But the ritual is far darker than they imagined. It requires not just death, but for the sacrifice to be fully conscious and aware as they are devoured by the Munjya, becoming part of its collective soul. In the final, heart-stopping moment, the ground beneath them splits open, revealing a chasm of writhing, tormented souls, each one screaming for release. As they stand at the edge of the chasm, the Munjya's form rises from the pit, an amalgamation of every soul it has ever taken. The faces of the lost victims twist in agony, their hollow eyes staring into the darkness as the Munjya demands its final sacrifice. The friends are left with a choice: let the Munjya take one of them willingly or risk being pulled into the abyss, where they will be consumed by the darkness for eternity. The episode ends with a chilling silence, broken only by the sound of the wind howling through the crypt. The camera lingers on the gaping chasm, leaving viewers wondering who, if anyone, will escape the Munjya's grip. Wrath of the abyss. As the group stands at the edge of the chasm, they feel an overwhelming force pulling them closer to the void. The Munjya's whisper now turns into a deafening roar, a mixture of tortured screams and malevolent laughter. The air becomes thick, almost suffocating, as if the very atmosphere is charged with despair. Suddenly, the ground trembles violently, and cracks begin to form, revealing glowing embers beneath the surface. The crypt transforms before their eyes, the walls shifting into grotesque faces of the souls the Munjya has devoured. Each face pleads for mercy, their hollow eyes staring into the distance, but they are eternally trapped in their nightmarish existence. Their voices overlap, creating a symphony of horror, begging for release but knowing there is none. The Munjya's form rises from the abyss, no longer a formless shadow but a towering figure, made from the very souls it has collected over centuries. Its body is composed of twisting faces, each one a victim who gave into their fear. Their eyes follow the group as the Munjya speaks through them, each face mouthing the words in unison: "You cannot escape me, you are mine." The group is now separated, each in their own nightmare within the crypt. The walls morph and stretch, creating endless corridors, trapping them in a maze of darkness. Each corner they turn leads them back to the greatest regrets, forcing them to relive their mistakes over and over. Every failed choice, every broken promise, every hidden guilt comes to life, tormenting them. In one particularly horrific moment, the crypt floor opens beneath one of the friends, and they fall into a pit filled with rotting hands, all clawing at them, pulling them deeper into the earth. The hands are cold, lifeless, yet they cling with a desperation that is terrifyingly real. The more they struggle, the tighter the grip becomes. The Munjya is feeding on their terror, growing stronger with every second. The remaining survivors stumble upon an old journal hidden in the crypt. It's filled with strange symbols and rituals, seemingly the writings of those who tried to banish the Munjya before. But the final pages are soaked in blood, smeared with frantic scribbles that warn of an even greater evil lurking within the abyss, something far older than the Munjya, a force that even the spirit fears. The chasm in the crypt widens, revealing a horrifying sight, a colossal eye at the center of the void, watching them. This is the true heart of the abyss, the source of the Munjya's power, and the keeper of the souls it has stolen. The eye blinks, and in that instant, a wave of despair washes over them, paralyzing them with fear. The Munjya is a servant to this greater evil, and they realize that defeating it might mean unleashing something far worse upon the world. Time is running out. The group must decide: complete the ritual and trap the Munjya once more, or destroy it entirely, risking the release of the ancient force within the abyss. The tension builds as the crypt begins to collapse, the walls crumbling and the ground cracking open beneath their feet. In a moment of pure terror, the Munjya lunges at them, its form shifting into a mass of darkness and screaming faces. The episode ends with the camera zooming into the gaping chasm, where the eye watches their every move, leaving the audience on the edge of their seat, questioning who, if anyone, will survive the Munjya's wrath. Descent into darkness as the crypt collapses around them, a howling wind erupts from the abyss, carrying with it the voices of the damned. The ground beneath them splinters, and the chasm widens, revealing layers upon layers of forgotten graves, each containing a piece of the Munjya's ancient history. The group is forced to run deeper into the crypt, but with each step, the crypt itself warps, becoming an endless labyrinth of corridors. The air thickens, and the stench of decay grows overpowering. Every turn in the crypt brings them closer to the heart of the Munjya's power. But as they delve deeper, they begin to encounter horrific echoes of past victims, specters trapped in eternal torment. These spectral figures scream in anguish, their bodies contorted in impossible shapes, their faces twisted in a grotesque rictus of pain. Their limbs reach out, desperate for escape, but they are bound to the crypt's walls by chains of shadow, pulled deeper into the dark as the Munjya feasts on their souls. The eye in the chasm begins to pulse with a sickly light, casting a flickering glow throughout the crypt. It watches their every move, its gaze filled with malevolent hunger. The group realizes that the eye is not just a watcher, but the true embodiment of the ancient evil that lurks beneath the surface. The Munjya, terrifying as it is merely the servant of this ancient power, a creature born to harvest souls for something far greater. As the tension builds, the survivors encounter a room unlike any other in the crypt, a sacrificial chamber. The walls are covered in blood-red symbols, and in the center of the room stands an ancient altar, worn smooth from centuries of use. The air is colder here, thick with the presence of death. A faint glow emanates from the altar, and as they approach, they see a book bound in human skin, its pages filled with ancient, forbidden knowledge. This book holds the key to defeating the Munjya, but the ritual is far more dangerous than they could have imagined. To trap the Munjya and its master, one of them must offer their own soul as bait, willingly stepping into the abyss to seal the crypt forever. The person who performs the ritual will be lost for eternity, their soul consumed by the Munjya, but they will buy the others a chance to escape. As the group debates, the Munjya's presence grows stronger, its shadow stretching across the room, waiting for them to falter. Suddenly, the ground quakes, and from the chasm rises a wave of darkness, an impenetrable fog that fills the room. The Munjya emerges from the shadows, its body composed of writhing faces, each one The story begins in a small, forgotten village, where time seems to have stopped. The camera pans to the bloodstone, now cracked but still pulsating softly, hinting that the Munjya's influence is far from over. The haunting aftermath, the shattered village in the days following the climactic battle, the village experiences a strange sense of calm. The once possessed villagers slowly regain their humanity, but shadows linger in their eyes, a reminder of the darkness they faced. The survivors gather, sharing their stories and trying to process the heavy loss of their friend. They establish a memorial for the one who sacrificed themselves, marking it with a stone engraved with their name, a symbol of their bravery. However, whispers of a new darkness spread through the village like wildfire. Some villagers begin to have unsettling dreams, echoing the nightmares from their time under the Munjya's influence. Children report seeing fleeting shadows darting through the woods at night, and strange symbols begin appearing on the trees surrounding the village, reminiscent of those in the crypt. The call of the abyss, the remaining members of the group, still grieving but determined to protect their home, decide to investigate the growing disturbances. They delve into old village records, searching for any mentions of the Munjya or similar dark entities. They find tales of other villages that faced similar curses, each tied to a dark artifact or ancient ritual. One night, a member of the group is visited by a vision, an echo of the Munjya calling out from the abyss. The vision reveals that the bloodstone, while powerful, cannot fully contain the Munjya's essence. It hints at a sister artifact, hidden away in the depths of the forest, that could either bolster the power of the bloodstone or unleash the Munjya in its entirety once more. The descent into the forest driven by a mix of fear and responsibility, the group ventures into the forest, armed with knowledge of the past and the hope to prevent a new calamity. The forest feels alive, its dense foliage thickening around them as they journey deeper. They hear whispers on the wind, drawing them closer to the heart of the darkness. Strange symbols appear on the bark of the trees, and shadows flit just out of sight, making them second-guess every noise. As they traverse the forest, they stumble upon a long-abandoned temple, overgrown and hidden by time. The structure pulses with dark energy, and the group realizes this is where the sister artifact lies. They carefully enter the temple, the air thick with the smell of decay and an unnatural chill that raises the hairs on their arms. The sister artifact inside the temple, they find the sister artifact, a dark crystal that pulses ominously. It is larger than the bloodstone, with a jagged, shifting surface that seems to absorb light. As they approach it, they are overwhelmed by visions of despair and hopelessness, showing them the Munjya's true power. The crystal resonates with the bloodstone, revealing their intertwined fate. In a moment of clarity, one survivor realizes that the two artifacts were once part of a single entity, split to contain the Munjya's power. If reunited, they could either bind the Munjya forever or unleash it with catastrophic consequences. The group debates the next steps, knowing they must choose wisely. The final choice as they contemplate their options, they are ambushed by shadowy figures, remnants of the Munjya's influence, manifestations of their fears and doubts. The figures taunt them, reminding them of their past failures and the cost of the decisions. In the ensuing chaos, one member is captured, and the group must make a choice, to save their friend or to destroy the sister artifact, which could lead to the Munjya's return. Ultimately, they decide to confront their fears and rescue their friend. They rally together, using the power of the Bloodstone to fight back against the shadows. In an intense showdown, they manage to free their captured comrade, but the Dark Crystal begins to react violently, threatening to unleash the Munjya's full fury. A new dawn. In a desperate act, they channel their collective strength, using the Bloodstone's power to bind the Dark Crystal and contain the Munjya's essence once more. However, they realize that the balance between light and dark remains fragile. They leave the forest, each member changed by their experiences, knowing that they will forever be connected to the darkness they faced. As the sun rises, the villagers gather to celebrate their survival, but the group stands apart, gazing into the distance. They know that their victory is only temporary, that the Munjya's curse is far from over. They vow to protect the village and each other, aware that the darkness could return at any moment. The final shot pans out over the village, revealing the forest looming ominously behind it, a constant reminder of the lurking shadows, leaving the audience with an unsettling feeling that this battle may not be the last. The haunting aftermath, continued unseen forces as time passes, the village settles into a false sense of normalcy. However, the members of the group who ventured into the forest are plagued by nightmarish visions and echoes of the Munjya's presence. Each member experiences hauntings tailored to the deepest fears. One sees visions of their loved ones consumed by darkness, while another hears the cries of those lost to the Munjya, calling them back into the abyss. The village elder, sensing the unease among the villagers, calls for a meeting. They gather in the main square, discussing the resurgence of nightmares and strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, shadows flickering in the corners of their eyes, and the scent of decay in the air. Whispers of the Munjya's return grow louder, spreading panic among the villagers. The discovery of the past determined to uncover the truth, the group decides to consult the village's ancient texts, searching for any clues about the Munjya and the artifacts. They stumble upon an old manuscript detailing a ritual that could permanently seal the Munjya away, but it requires not only the Bloodstone and the Dark Crystal but also the sacrifice of a pure soul. Faced with this revelation, the group grapples with the moral implications of the ritual. They debate whether they could bring themselves to sacrifice someone to ensure their village's safety. The tension escalates as suspicions arise, with some members believing that one among them might be the pure soul destined for the sacrifice. The gathering storm as the atmosphere grows heavier with tension. One night, a fierce storm brews overhead, as if nature itself reflects the turmoil among the villagers. Thunder rumbles, lightning strikes illuminate the forest, and the air crackles with energy. In the chaos, the group members are separated, each confronted by the darkest fears in physical form. One member, isolated in the woods, encounters the embodiment of the Munjya, a twisted version of the deceased friend who had sacrificed themselves in the first battle. This apparition taunts them, revealing the sacrifices made in the past and questioning the morality of their choices. The confrontation is intense, forcing them to confront the consequences of their actions and the price of their survival. The choice of sacrifice eventually, they regroup and share their harrowing encounters. The haunting forces become more aggressive, pushing them toward a decision. As tensions reach a boiling point, a member steps forward, volunteering to be the sacrifice, believing it to be the only way to rid their village of the Munjya for good. This declaration stuns the group, leading to a heartbreaking confrontation where feelings of guilt and desperation surface. They try to dissuade their comrade, but the individual remains resolute, believing that their sacrifice is necessary to atone for the darkness that has consumed their home. The ritual with heavy hearts, they prepare for the ritual under the ominous night sky. They gather the necessary items, the bloodstone, the dark crystal, and their friends' offerings. As they chant the incantation from the ancient text, the air thickens with energy, and the forest around them responds, shadows creeping closer, drawn to the ritual's power. The moment reaches its climax as they bind the dark crystal and bloodstone together, channeling their energy. As the chosen individual steps forward, a wave of dark energy erupts from the forest, and the Munjya spirit materializes, furious at the prospect of being sealed away. The final confrontation, a fierce battle ensues between the group, the Munjya, and the manifestation of their comrade. As the group struggles to hold the ground, they witness the sacrifice fighting against the Munjya's influence, desperately trying to push it back into the abyss. In a climactic moment, the ritual reaches its zenith. The dark crystal cracks, releasing a surge of energy that intertwines with the bloodstone. The essence of the Munjya roars in anger but is gradually pulled into the void. In a final act of defiance, the sacrifice uses the last of their strength to complete the incantation, sealing the Munjya away once more. The aftermath of sacrifice, the forest falls silent, and the villagers awaken, realizing the Munjya has been contained. However, the price has been steep. The sacrifice is gone, leaving a palpable void among the survivors. They mourn their lost friend, forever changed by the ordeal, but they also feel a sense of relief that their village is safe, at least for now. As dawn breaks, the villagers gather to honor the memory of the one who sacrificed themselves. They plant a tree where the ritual was performed, a living monument to the bravery displayed. However, as they begin to heal, dark clouds linger on the horizon, and a chilling wind whispers through the trees, hinting that the battle against darkness is far from over.